What's going on, y'all? This is Francisco with Covenant Dispatch LLC, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Guys, if this is your first time visiting this channel, please do me a favor. Right under this video, smash that like button. In fact, if you could, do me a favor and hit that like button right now. The reason why I ask you to do so is because when you do, it provokes YouTube to place the video in a greater audience, a more larger audience, depending on how many likes it has. And I believe this information will really both encourage and help somebody who's actually looking for this kind of information. So do me a favor, hit that like button. Secondly, hit that subscribe button. And then lastly, hit that notification bell. If you like the videos that and the content that we put out there, if you hit that notification bell, of course, you'll be alerted for when we do post future videos. Guys, as you can see in the title and in the thumbnail, I want to get right into this because I don't want to be super long-winded. I want to encourage my independent freight dispatchers out there. If you're somebody if you've been somebody who watched most of my videos and content here on YouTube, you know, we talk about trucking in general. We do interviews. We talk about box trucking, but primarily we talk about independent freight dispatching. And I've done many videos on independent freight dispatching. So if you are interested in that, please go check out a lot of our other content. But I want to get right into this article here. And the reason why is because when I read this article, I learned a lot about the expansion and the growth through time of the freight brokerage industry within the trucking market, right? And it encouraged me because it reminded me in a lot of ways of the independent freight dispatch market that is a fairly new market, right? And so we're going to jump right into it. So to kind of give you guys my thoughts on it. And again, it won't be super long-winded. If you're still watching, please wait till the end because I'm going to share something very special for my independent freight dispatchers, something that I believe is going to help you. And I'll be able to shed more light on it as I kind of read through this article. So Craig Fuller is the CEO of FreightWaves. He's the author of this particular article. Now, FreightWaves is a reputable news source within the trucking industry, if not the best news source at the time. Maybe that might be a subjective, maybe that's just my opinion, but I do believe that they have some of the best information that they put out there. And they're constantly putting articles through different, authors and bloggers and stuff like that. But Craig Fuller, who's the CEO, is the one who actually made this article. And Craig, I personally love the information that he puts out. It's transparent, it's honest, but it's also truthful and it's straight to the point. And he gets right to the point and it's very informative. And he's also somebody who has a lot of insight and wisdom in the industry. He's been around for a long time. And anyways, let's get right into the article. So it talks, starting off by talking about the title, of course, is Freight Recession, unlike any other in history. But with that article, they decided to talk about the rise and the expansion and the growth of the freight brokerage market. So the rise of the freight brokerage market, again, we're going to skim through this article because I don't want to be long-winded. And I want to share with you guys, if you're an independent freight dispatcher or an aspiring independent freight dispatcher, I want to share with you guys something that I believe is going to help you out to be competitive in this market. So secondly, side note before I start reading, another thing is I've placed, some of you might say, hey, I've read other videos or I've watched other videos or read other articles that said independent freight dispatching is illegal. I've made plenty of videos talking about that and debunking that. If you're interested in seeing one of our videos where we talk about that, I'll put the link in the description under this video, or certainly shoot us an email where we can elaborate more on it. And I'll also put that in the description under this video. So in 2000, and again, we're going to skim through this. We're going to take out 2 points that the article made and how it compares to independent freight dispatchers and how it can help you as an independent freight dispatcher. This is an encouraging video. This isn't like a doom and gloom video. In 2000, freight brokerage was a cottage industry representing a small percentage of the trucking industry at 6%. Fast forward to the year of 2023, which is, of course, 23 years later, and freight brokers handle more than 20% of all trucking freight. That's a big boost. It's only 14%, a 14% increase, but guys, that's huge. That's huge. It looked like a small number, but that's huge, right? Brokerages are mainstream today. As freight brokerages have taken on a larger percentage of the market, they have reshaped the typical freight cycle. In the early 2000s, it was uncommon to see a freight broker in the primary position of a shipper's routing guide. Back then, freight brokers usually handled freight that asset-based carriers didn't want or that was priced too low for the carriers to make their margins. In other words, freight brokers back then, they took on the crumbs of the industry, right? Their competitors were asset-based carriers. Now, these are carriers that basically have the systems in place to be able to handle freight directly with the shipper without needing a freight broker as the middleman. That's what an asset-based carrier is. And these were the competitors to freight brokers back then and even to this day. Now, freight brokers would also serve as a last resort if carriers had freight surges that they could not handle. Again, these guys are basically at that time taking crumbs. Since then, however, things have changed dramatically. As brokerages invested in technology and customer service, let me highlight that. As they invested in technology and customer service, they began to offer a more compelling product than their asset-based competitors and took on a greater role in routing guides. When they say technology and customer service, they're talking about TMS systems, which stands for trucking management software. They're talking about some of the different things that they have, whether it be tracking, whether it be customer service, as far as maybe getting, tracking the drivers, calling them, getting updates, things like that, which we're going to talk about more because we're going to revisit this point that was made in the article. And this is how they began to grow in their reputation. Today, it is common for multiple freight brokerages to be in primary positions and shippers routing guides, often as the top choice, beating out their asset-based competitors. Now, moreover, the quality of freight that brokers handle now is far better than it was in 2000 in comparison to 2023. Why? Shippers, both large and small, now rely on freight brokers' deep database of reliable carriers to ensure that their loads are shipped and delivered on time. Here's another point. Not only did they boost their technology, not only did they boost their customer service, but they became a point of contact of an entity, a business that had direct contacts and networks with carriers. Now, with that being said, let me fast forward and show you why that's important. And then I'm going to come back up and read this really quick, and then we're going to kind of conclude this video so I can get to the point that I really wanted to get to for this video. So, as noted above, the number of motor carriers exploded since deregulation, which we're going to read what that is. The U.S. Department of Transportation statistics show that of the roughly 531. Now, remember, back in those days in 2000, there were about 18,000 trucking companies, right? 531,000, right, today. Now, of course, that number isn't accurate. It fluctuates. 99% operate with 100 or fewer trucks, and almost 97% have fewer than 10 trucks. What does that tell you? That tells you that a bulk of the trucking industry of carriers that are registered within the United States are small mom and pop trucking companies. This is where freight brokerages thrive, in this industry, right? Of course, this excludes some of the bigger companies like JB Hunt and CH Robinson and things like that. Now, going back up to the point that I was making, the reason why I shared that with you is because if you remember what we were reading up here, it says why shippers, both large and small, now rely on freight brokers' deep database of reliable carriers. So if we're talking about 531 registered companies and let's say more or less around 2 million active truckers out there, right? That's a lot of trucks that these freight brokerages, who at now handle about 20% of the freight, they have a huge network with carriers. And this is why they're so prominent in our industry right now, in the trucking industry. Now, let's talk about deregulation really quick before I make my last point. The Motor Carrier Act of 1980 deregulated the trucking industry. So prior to 1980, and let's keep reading to get more clarification. In addition to all the other changes generated by trucking deregulation, it led the development of the freight brokerage industry as we know it today. So this helped them, the Motor Carrier Act of 1980. How? Prior to deregulation, the trucking industry was highly regulated by the ICC, or the Interstate Commerce Commission. These guys were like the Nazis of the trucking industry back then. So from 1935 to 1980, the ICC set the rates and the routes of interstate carriers, and they even mandated the type of trucking, freight that the trucking companies could haul. So it was crazy, right? They regulated everything. Now, let's read down here. Therefore, there was little need for freight brokers during the reign of the ICC, but by the 1970s, many believed that competition was being strangled by the ICC. Fast forwarded, Jimmy Carter passed the Motor Carrier Act of 1980 and made the trucking industry more competitive as the ICC's regulations and mandates were removed. So of the 18,000 trucking companies that were existing at that time, many went out of business because now there's new competition. Now, of course, it starts to talk about some of the different companies that thrive: CH Robinson, American Backhaulers. And if we go down here, as more carriers began using freight brokerages, new and more professional freight brokerages started. Moreover, a number of large carriers started in-house brokerage divisions. Let's talk about that. The reason being is because a freight brokerage has the license through the FMCSA to be able to do what's called freight forwarding. As a part of freight forwarding, you're allowed to allocate traffic. Let me tell you what that means. If I'm a freight broker, I can go to a shipper, I can receive loads from that shipper, and then allocate or actually solicit those loads to individual carriers within the United States through load boards, through direct communication or relationships established with carriers. I can take loads and disseminate them to different carriers. If you're an asset-based carrier, you can only handle whatever loads directly through that shipper with whatever trucks you have. But you can't, let's say, for example, I'm an asset-based carrier and I deal directly with a shipper and they give me a capacity of loads, but with the trucks that I have, I can only handle 60%. The other 40%, I can't do. And I can't solicit those to other carriers because I don't have a freight brokerage license. And so this is how freight brokerages begin to grow within the industry, right? And so as the link and then we'll read down here before I make my last point. As the link between shippers and carriers, freight brokers are traffic managers for shippers as well as sales agents. Today, brokerages are responsible for thousands of daily freight transactions. When they are at their most efficient, brokerages can decrease transportation costs for shippers while also increasing carriers' revenue. And I want to make this point here too also. Small carriers that do not have relationships with at least one brokerage are at a distinct disadvantage. So they went from being a small cottage company that took crumbs in the industry to now a prominent position within the industry that handle 20% of the freight. And now it's even to the point where if you're a small carrier, which as we read makes up 99 essentially, or even 90% of the 531 carriers registered, that means you're at a disadvantage if you don't even have communication with at least one brokerage, according to what they're saying, and it's true. Here's how this all ties together. I want to go back up to the point up here and share something with you guys. Now, if you remember, we read up here, it said that it talks about first of all, why have freight brokers their industry expanded? First of all, remember, they updated their technology, they updated their customer service, and they became a point of contact that network with carriers to be able to provide carriers and trucks to ship the shippers loads, right? So I want to highlight this point right here and end with this. If you're an aspiring freight dispatch company or you're already operating as an independent freight dispatch company, I want to encourage you. Reading the growth and the expansion of the freight brokerage market throughout time really reminded me in many ways of the independent freight dispatch market. Now, here's the thing, the industry, I should say. The reason why I believe these are just my opinions. You guys can put your thoughts in the comments. The reason why I believe the independent freight dispatching industry hasn't reached its full potential is because the FMCSA has not put their coverage over them yet. And what do I mean by that? And I believe I'm in favor of this, once the FMCSA is able to regulate independent freight dispatch companies by making them get licensed, even possibly making them get like maybe general liability insurance or something like that. Once they're able to regulate them, they become more reputable, they become more reliable, more sustainable. Their carriers begin to build more of a trust with them, and it also filters out scammers. The problem right now with the independent freight dispatching industry, it's legal, it's completely legal, but it's possible for a scammer to try to weasel his or her way into the pot of freight being handled through the vehicle of an independent freight dispatch company. Now, obviously, if you're a freight broker or a carrier, you should be able to read between the lines and tell if they're a scammer. However, people still try it. But once the FMCSA regulates them, they now become more reputable, and that's my opinion. I believe that the FMCSA should make independent freight dispatchers get licensed. Maybe not in the same capacity by making them pay 300 or anything like that, but maybe like 150 or whatever. However they decide to do it, I believe this is gonna grow and expand the independent freight dispatcher market. Nonetheless, the independent freight dispatching industry is not going anywhere. It's going to continue to grow. And in the same way that we saw the growth of the freight brokerage market, we're going to see the growth of the independent freight dispatching industry. And here's why also. As you can see, one of the key factors that led to the growth of freight brokeraging industries was that they invested in technology and customer service. They also began to be a point of contact that networked with multiple carriers. Here's something that I want to tell you guys, and I'm so grateful that I've been able to build this partnership with this company. An independent freight dispatch company basically and essentially operates as, and I always say this, as an administrative rep for the carrier. They represent the carrier, handle all the back office work, yada yada. On the side of the freight brokerage, they essentially take on some of their responsibilities by giving ETAs, tracking their carriers, and doing a lot of the things that a freight brokerage company would typically do when giving loads to a carrier. So they essentially take pieces of responsibilities from the carrier and the freight broker, and they don't handle the money. So because they don't handle the money, there's no liability because they're not licensed freight brokers, but they're still able to help both broker and carrier. So they're going to become a prominent, as time continues, they're going to become a more reputable, prominent industry. I believe once the FMCSA regulates them, it's going to be better. But here's the thing though, freight dispatchers that don't offer good services to carriers they're not gonna go anywhere. They're not gonna be competitive. The reason why freight brokers in that time and even now beat their competitors, which were asset-based carriers, is because they provided better technology, better customer service, right? More access to a network with different carriers. And guys, we discuss a lot of these things in our independent, pre-recorded independent freight dispatcher course, which I'm not going to elaborate too much on that, but we do provide a pre-recorded independent freight dispatcher course that shows you everything you need to know step by step from A to Z, how to start your own at-home freight dispatch company. And we'll provide the link in the description under this video. And then with that, there's an upsell. You get our carrier acquisition training, which shows you how to get carriers for your company through marketing strategies. We have that for $170, but if you purchase the independent freight dispatcher course, you get it for, I think it's about $35 off or so. So you get it for like $130 something. The independent freight dispatcher course right now, we have it for $269.99. And of course, that can change throughout time. We have tons of good reviews. We've sold over 700 trainings already. So we're not some random, coaching program, consultation company. We've done a lot throughout the time. We've helped tons of people start companies. And so anyways, I don't want to talk too much about that. We'll put the link for that in the description under this video. But the thing that I really wanted to point out to you guys is a company that we recently partnered with, and their name is SmartHop. Some of you guys might even know who they are already, or you heard me talk about them. SmartHop is essentially a one-stop shop that allows you as a freight dispatcher or an owner operator or a trucking company fleet owner to essentially put all of your responsibilities into one platform and operate everything seamless. So if you're booking a load, if you're tracking, if you need factoring services, if you're needing a fuel card service, guys, these guys are doing so much, and it's awesome what they're offering. And I completely and wholeheartedly recommend that you guys get plugged in with them. We offer through us, you guys can access SmartHop's platform for 1 month free. Don't take my word for it, guys. Go on the link that we're going to provide in the description under this video. For the promo code, put one stop in all caps, ONESTOP, no spaces in between, one stop, and you'll get 1 month free and you'll get a demo. They'll break down the service that they provide for small mom and pop trucking companies and also freight dispatchers alike. Now, the reason why I recommend them, guys, is because as a freight dispatch company, you have to offer good quality to your carriers and owner operators that you deal with. You have to offer good quality. So SmartHop allows you to do that. They're eventually getting to the point where all you have to do is click one button and their back office agents and things like that will be able to basically handle everything for you. And you can essentially operate on autopilot. But again, guys, book a demo with them. And we'll provide the link in the description under this video. Book a demo with them. Feel it out for yourself. You get 1 month free. Of course, if you don't like it, you don't have to continue, but I promise you guys, you're going to like it. We'll put the information in the description under this video. According to what we spoke about in this video, please, guys, let me know your thoughts. in the comment section. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video.